Most of the fact witnesses brought before the House Intelligence Committee admit to sharp policy differences with the president. But supporters of the president, including one who served on his National Security Council, say goes far beyond that.
Looks like an inside job of a bunch of career bureaucrats getting together and saying, we've wanted to impeach this guy for 3 years. How do we do it? Oh, wait, I think we found a way.
All right, let's debate the merits of that argument with Chris Hahn of the Progressive Podcast and Buck Sexton, former CIA officer. Good to have you with us tonight, gentlemen. Okay, so let's talk about Fiona Hill, obviously testifying today, making a lot of points, people claiming victory on both sides about this, but they're also pointing to a change in position from her. Back in 2015, she authored, in part, a Washington Post piece during the Obama administration saying that we shouldn't be sending military aid to the Ukrainians, saying if we plunge headlong into sending weapons, we may lose our allies and we may never have the opportunity to get things right. But now testifying about concerns about us not sending aid, she says there's a reason for that. This is her testimony today on the switch in her position.
When I came into government in 2017 and started to interact with all of my colleagues in the Pentagon, and you had Laura Cooper here yesterday, I realized, in fact, that there'd been an awful lot of work done on this and that there was a clear and consistent plan for the sustainability long-term of the Ukrainian military. So I changed my mind.
Buck, is it worth the time to look back at her 2015 position and the change, the evolution?
Yeah, I think so. We have a lot of people that are claiming in these different hearings to be experts on Ukraine, and that's one of the areas, that gravitas is supposed to mean that we listen to them on everything else, when in reality, this is a reminder that President Trump has been far better on Ukraine, a far stronger ally for the Ukrainian military than Obama before. Keep in mind, it was during the Obama administration that the invasion of eastern Ukraine began, the Donbas region, this whole thing got kicked up. It was also when the Crimea referendum happened. It was also when the MH17 flight on its way from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur killed almost 300 people were killed by a Russian missile fired by Russian-backed separatists. That was all when Obama was in office. They wouldn't give the missiles. They wouldn't give any lethal aid whatsoever to an army that was under assault. And now these people are saying Trump is so terrible on Ukraine. And yeah, I guess he was right on this one thing. He's been right in ways that really mattered, and that's getting lost in all this. They're trying to make it seem like Trump is Putin's puppet here. The reality is he is far better, far stronger in defense of Ukraine than his predecessor. And a lot of these people should probably sit up and take some note of that.
Well, somebody who sat up and took notice was Rush Limbaugh. We'll play what he had to say, and then, Chris, get your response.
Ukraine sat there and was defenseless as Russia came in and annexed Crimea, with people like Fiona Hill doing the advising, suggesting it would be a mistake to provide Ukraine defensive aid. It would be a terrible mistake. Now, all of a sudden, when Trump has provided this assistance, these people come forward and complain that he put a delay of a couple of weeks on it.
Chris, what about that analysis?
Well, I think Buck said it better, and at least he has the privilege of serving his country before he actually said something that is completely ridiculous and I disagree with. But let me put it this way. Fiona Hill's position on Ukraine aid is irrelevant. She could have that position and still believe that the president should faithfully execute his office. And when the Congress overwhelmingly approves that aid, and then the president of the United States puts a condition that you investigate his political opponent before that aid is released, that is wrong. And I think what we've seen this week time and time again is countless people confirming what the president already told us when he released the so-called transcript a couple of weeks ago, that he asked the Ukrainian president for a favor, and one of those favors was investigating Joe Biden, who he perceived as his strongest political opponent.
Was there an investigation,
Richard Nixon on steroids, and the president of the United States should resign.
Was there an investigation?
Chris? Was there an investigation?
Was there an investigation?
The answer is no.
Was there an investigation?
Was the aid released?
Was there an investigation? Yes. There is an investigation going on about the aid release right now. I don't know.
Was there a Biden or Burisma or corruption investigation?
So just because he
Well, yes or
failed
no?
at his extortion
Just
attempt,
asking.
well, just because he
Okay, but it's
failed
gone
at
from quid pro
his
quo to
extortion, he
bribery
was
to now
bad, a bad
extortion.
extortionist. He still tried to commit extortion. Attempted bribery is bribery.
I mean,
Attempted
this is-
extortion
Okay.
is
See,
extortion.
Let's bring
what this
Buck
does
back
remind
in.
us all. I
Buck.
mean, I wanted to give Chris his say, and it's what we've been hearing a lot from Democrats. And unfortunately, they can keep repeating it.
Oh, it's
they
true.
can keep trying to bludgeon the American people into submission, into thinking that a thing that didn't happen, and that they can't even really prove with any certainty how it would have happened if it was going to happen, which it didn't, is something that we're all supposed to care so much about. The reason why Trump's foreign policy in Ukraine matters is because all this crying, I mean, it looked like Schiff today was going to have some kind of a fit when talking about how we've left Ukraine and all the fights against Russia. They were talking about Russia again as though we haven't gone through over 2 years of the Mueller probe. That whole insanity, that conspiracy theory run by Democrats to try to topple a presidency. We're talking about
if
Russia
somebody
again today.
takes a shot at you, it's
Wait,
still
no, I
attempted
like your
Gentlemen,
term.
gentlemen,
It was
somebody
what I
Somebody tries
expected.
to bribe, it's
Okay.
bribery.
It's not a bribe, and if it were a bribe, if it were a clear crime,
It
by
was
the
a
way,
bribe.
Chris,
Gotta
they
wrap it
wouldn't
up. It
was
change.
clearly bribery.
They wouldn't change
Gotta wrap
what the
it up.
crime was every day.
Okay, got to wrap it up. But what
Read
matters
it.
now are the 435 people who will have to vote on this, probably within a couple of weeks. Maybe it will be our Christmas present. We'll get it before then. Chris and Buck, come back soon.
Yeah, Chris and I were just getting started.
Thank you.
I know, you're both getting lumps of coal.
Yeah, baby.
I love you. Okay, goodbye.